Hey guys, don't know for sure if you guys can see me. I think we're live now. And this is Dr. Berg here. I'm sitting at ComeritLabs with 6 of the developers who's been working on BusinessObjects 4.0 and 4.1 in the last about 2 months or so. So today we're going to take questions and answers regarding the BI 4.1 and give you an opportunity to ask questions and show you some of the new features. So one of the things we do want to show you is the configuration wizards. That's a brand new features in the BI4, and it's going to help you basically managing these folders and this structure. Who wants to talk about this? Michael?
All right. We can actually do a little demo of that.
So we're going to go through and do a demo.
All right. On our sandbox box here at the ComeritLabs, we're going to log in and do a little demo of that system configuration wizard.
If we get this password correctly.
We have to screen share back to this now.
So what we're doing right now, we're going to show you the environments of the 4.1 and take you through and show you a little bit of the new configuration wizards that comes with 4.1. So Michael?
So upon installing 4.1, you will be, the first time you log into this central management console there, you'll see this configuration wizard, which is a welcome tool to setting up your BI environment. You see here that you're able to adjust your capacities as need be. You can size it as a vector scale here. As you're going through the wizard here, you get the opportunity to adjust your folders and where the databases are going to be stored and applications are going to run. And once completed here, you hit apply, and the system will automatically configure it as you went through the wizard here.
Yeah, this is one of the features that we really like inside the BI 4.1 environment, because managing these servers and splitting them up and basically work on the process servers, intelligence tiers, and so forth, that was very much a manual task, or a semi-manual task in the previous release. So it's kind of really nice to see it in the 4.1 release that we now have an interface to walk our way through the configuration wizard and managing the servers. And this is brand new. It does not exist in XSAT 3.1 or 4.0 for that matter. So I think we're ready to take some questions. I think we have some questions already posted here. So let's start off from the bottom here. We have
a question here. Would one be able to perform subquery using Webi in 4.1?
You want to take that, Brendan?
Oh yes, subqueries in Webi are not explicitly supported in the 4.1 or the 4.0 release, and I believe that the subquery functionality really does depend in total in the Bw toolset on what your data source is, whether it's coming from a relational or an OLAP connection. And doing this subquerying on a OLAP connection causes some serious issues as you have dimensions trying to subquery other dimensions, and it's just not something that's generally supported in the Web Intelligence Query Designer itself.
So I get the answer to that is not very well. What's the next question?
Next question we have here is, one of the features missing in the 4.0 dashboard is the ability to save reports in the PDF format. Are there any support provided in the DI 4.1? What's the SAP view on this feature?
Now this question can be answered in a yes or no. Yes, currently Dashboards does have a PDF to export feature, but the problem is that it embeds a flash into that PDF. Now if you were looking for an answer if it would do a static image into a PDF, then currently that is not a feature part of 4.1, and as of right now, I do not believe it is also in the SAP scope.
So, and also the participants on this call, feel free to just answer enter questions and follow-up questions as we go through that. If either we answer it correctly or we answer it completely to your liking, and if not, you can just add another follow-up question. So let's take a look at the next one.
Our next question is, a lot of customers are concerned regarding the ease of use and usability factors from my experience. Has Bw 4.1 addressed those concerns, i.e. Webi has a lot of features, however, the feature set is not so obvious?
Web Intelligence 4.1 does include some new features that will make it a little easier for end users to get a hold of, and most specifically, they have the ability for administrators to dictate what interface the end user visually sees on the client tool itself. So the interface for building the report can be custom tailored to your report writing demographic, with some of the more technical or non-useful components hidden or not displayed to them, and you can have a very custom tailored or simplified interface for building web intelligence reports.
And that is a really good idea for people deploying a BI self-service, because there are different skill sets between maybe a power user, an authoring role, and an IT person. And as you go through that, you might seriously want to consider what features you put into the development interface for those people. So, do we have another question?
What are the points that need to be taken care of for the upgrade from BO 4.0 to 4.1? And we can speak to that. We have a sandbox environment here locally that we have recently upgraded our 4.0 environment to 4.1. It is best to adhere to SAP's best practices in backing up your CMS database and your BI applications database as well, to ensure that if something doesn't go right, you have a safe backup to restore from, because uninstalling the BI 4.1 platform does not automatically restore your 4.0 database.
So big one there is to run a backup, so you have something to come back to once you've done it. So far, however, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but the upgrade back to the 4.1 was actually a fairly smooth one. There wasn't a lot of issues around it.
Yes, sir. It was very, very smooth.
So I know from a 4.0 to 4.1, it's been a couple of years now since the 4.0 release came out, and it looks like SAP has spent the time to basically develop the upgrade path very smooth and straightforward. So we have recommended to most of our customers who have a go live now in December or January to go to the 4.1 platform. We didn't have much of an issue there. So let's take a look at the next one.
Next question is, hi Dr. Berg, I use BusinessObjects for reporting and BI design. My parent company is SAP BW for reporting. What new features in 4.1 can I use to convince them it is efficient and viable to connect to BusinessObjects suite via BW data source? Cheers, Rich.
Well, the main thing, I think it's kind of a very open-ended question. I think going forward now, there's no doubt that combined with the Design Studio that is available as well, this is by far the preferred method of using your BI tools. Get away from the Bex tools, the Bex workbooks, the Bex web templates, the web application designer templates, and really move into this landscape. I think with the features that you see in Webi, that allows you basically to tailor that to individual environments. Also, even in 4.0, you do have the ability to render into HTML5. I know the functionality is about 37 objects. It's not that comprehensive, but the ability to go to dashboards and also use that in HTML5, I don't think most people today does not question the idea of whether or not you should be using the BI tool suite instead of the Bex tool suite. Also, when you do specific questions on connecting back to BW, the preferred method of doing this, both in the HANA world and in the non-HANA world, is you build the queries, the Bex queries, you pick them up in the Bix connectors, the BI connection services, and that's basically how you render them out. That avoids some of the MDX overheads. But that has been available for quite a long time, including in 4.0.
Our next question here. We have ECC 6.0 with EHP 6. We want to have dashboards and some operational reports in Bj. What is the best possible way to connect the ERP to Bobject without using a data warehousing layer like BW?
Okay, let's just stop there. So in ECC 6, you basically have, in Service Pack 5, Bex Query Designer does exist inside the ERP system. So technically, you can build Bex queries in the ERP system. And you've got to be very careful when you do this because you're putting a very high burden on the ERP system. So we tell our clients that it's best preferred to do if you have financial close, where during the close you have reversal entries and you have adjustments and depreciations, and you need to see the data right there and then. In that case, yes, you can build these Bex queries in the ERP system and then expose it to the front end. You can also build queries to web service and connect it on the front end. There's some issues around hierarchies in that case if you have very complex large hierarchies, multi-nodes. But it is a capability to connect it. The main thing is comes back to performance. If you roll out a bunch of queries that are sitting on top of ERP to hundreds of users, they can bring the ERP system to its knees. So there are some companies, I know for instance there was a presentation at TechEd where our friends over at Pacific Drilling chose to build, they had their ERP system running in HANA and therefore chose not to build a data warehouse solution. They're just querying all operational reporting straight out of, and dashboards and Webi and everything else straight out of ERP. They can get away with it because ERP runs in HANA, but for most people, if in a limited scope, you could do it, but I would not recommend it as a default. The default answer should be a data warehouse.
All right, our next question. In what aspects SAP 4.1 is better than Microsoft SBI Toolset? Can Universe BO 4.1 connect to multiple databases, retrieve any data having relationships between tables and different databases?
The new 4.1 Universe can connect to multiple databases via the multi-source Universe, and I know the BI 4.1 is also supposed to have increased compatibility with merging tables from our relational connections between tables from different data sources in the multi-source Universe. So yes, it should be able to do that just fine.
All right. Our next question is Design Studio going to replace BusinessObjects BI front end as a tool of choice?
Well, let me just start off with that. I wouldn't use the word tool of choice. It's an IT-driven tool. It can build really complex and really awesome dashboards. It is a fantastic environment to work with. And it is definitely replacing the web application designer inside the SAP landscape in the long term. That doesn't mean it disappeared immediately overnight. The web application designer is still supported. But yeah, long term, I wouldn't go as far as to say that it replaces all like Analysis, Webi, Crystal, and all the other ones. That's a far stretch. These are different tools for different purposes. Lucaccio, you want to add something?
Well, it's believed that Design Studio will replace dashboards, but in SAP's statement of direction, it clearly states that they have no intention of discontinuing dashboards in the foreseeable future. But Design Studio is the tool when it comes to mobile. But it's kind of limited when it comes to features, but this version 1.2, which comes out later this month, will really be a big step in the right direction for Design Studio.
So I think if you are using a lot of web templates today and you're working in the web application designer, this is a tool that you have to put on your radar screen. It is really awesome, also for the mobile piece and also for the dashboard side, industrial strength dashboards, IT-driven, like externalizing data, much more controls than you have in Excelsius. But it does, like Lucaccio said, it does not replace dashboard. Dashboard will still be out there.
All right, our next question. We are working with a BI 4.0 on top of a HANA study. We see that HANA is able to work with hierarchies defined on the R3 system. However, BI 4.0 is not able to read these. Will this be possible in 4.1?
Well, it depends. So, consulting answer. If you are using a BW system on HANA, of course, hierarchies are just natively supported. It's not a big deal. You can have alternate hierarchies. You can have basically whatever you want. If you're going to build the hierarchies yourself, like in a sidecar, where you basically model your own tables, you build your analytical attributes and calculation views, and then you access those views into your BI tool sets, then of course you're no longer relying on tools like BW. And as a result, you're going to have to model those hierarchies yourself. So you have to come up with your own modeling techniques around this of how you want to handle it. But you are going to have to build it yourself. But if you are running this one right now in the BW world, then it's not an issue. So it depends a little bit on the source that you're accessing. But if you choose not to buy BW and build it yourself, you're going to have to build it yourself. So I personally think BW has a very good future here to help you do those things. Restricted calculated key figures, authorization relevant object. So BW does a little bit more than just storing the data for you.
All right, our next question. Does custom formatting within objects get any better in 4.1? Having to redo the custom format for each object is so frustrating.
I'm going to assume on this question that we're talking about Webi, most likely. And yes, in 4.1, that situation does improve quite a bit with custom color palettes and custom color assignments for each dimension you have in your Web Intelligence report. So you can apply a color palette definition to several different charts at one time. So you don't have to go through and completely recreate your color template every single time that you change an object or add a new object to your report.
We did have a comment here. The next one that came out says, are we just going to talk or just demoing? I think this might be a good time to actually show you some of the new features. There's a really cool feature called the Jam, which is like I would call like a social media sites for BI, which is brand new in BI 4.0. So let's take a look and see exactly what that means. It's ability to share, elaborate on reporting analytics, kind of like a social, almost like a Facebook for your BI landscape. So.
Okay, our apologies, guys. It looks like we had a outage.
Okay. So can we bring up now the demo? We had a little, Google decided to have a little fun with us. So we had to go back and actually log on again. So let's take a look.
All right, so everyone should be able to see the screen now. We are demoing our SAP Jam site internally here at ComeritLabs. As you see, with this new tool with SAP, there's a social collaboration features where you can collaborate among your employees, your clients in a secure environment.
So this is kind of a brand new tool where people can basically, you can put your logos on, you can brand it, you can have all your informations, you can have feeds and updates, you can upload files to it, and you can share your BI stuff. So like a social media site for your BI. Can you show some of the features?
So here we have a link that's been posted by an employee here. We could then view that link from within just a simple click there to get to that article that he's referring to. Within that feed, you could also say, hey, I like that feed. That was real useful. Or, that was a good read. You could just sit there and post back and collaborate between yourselves.
And this is stored in the cloud, so it's stored on the SAP side in the cloud here. So you basically work like very much a Facebook or a blog page where you can communicate and collaborate together, but you can also set up groups.
So you can set up your group, so you can, as you're posting a news feed, you can push it out to that particular group. And very similar to Google Circles there, where you can hit all your targets in one feed there.
So you can think about this, that within a company you might have a finance group or a closing group or a controllers or business or HR, and you can then set up your own little group and then have communications between that, bringing more of the social media stuff in together with your BI. And in order to activate this, Michael, there's just a single click inside the BI4 Studio?
Well, with SAP Jam, there's a free version which you can utilize that. With that, you go to the cloud, you go to jam4.sap.com and register, and from there you can set up your Jam in the cloud there, per se, for the company. There is the ability to link that back to your BI platform, but that I believe that it starts in the paid for service for SAP Jam. So
it's pretty cool feature seeing SAP actually kind of bridging the BI side and also the collaborative side. So this is new in 4.1. So let's get back to our questions.
Okay, our question is there any major problems if we decide to upgrade BO 4.0 to 4.1? Is there a main considerations that must be taken care of to avoid any disruption or major problems?
Michael?
This is similar to the question we answered previously. If we, there's some best practices that SAP's put out as far as backing up your CMS database and backing up your BI platform applications there, database, before performing that upgrade. That upgrade is considered like a patch. It's, like I said, pretty simple, but just for the best practices there, it's important to back up your databases so you can ensure if something doesn't go quite right, you have a means to go back to a solid working environment.
Yeah, we did have an issue with this as well. Upon our initial 4.1 installation, we had a running system for a while, and we installed some new client tools, and this is why we stress backing up your CMS and other application data, because we had some issue go wrong and our CMS database was corrupted and we had nothing to roll back to. So we had the pleasure of installing it as a standalone upgrade as well, and we can confirm that the standalone installation of 4.1 installs pretty seamlessly as well, and is advertised to install faster than 4.0. We can also confirm that the standalone from scratch installation of 4.1 does install much quicker than the previous 4.0 installation. I think our total runtime from scratch to back up and running was about an hour or hour 15 minutes. So
I think you also want to do this in your sandbox. Run it in the sandbox, get your run book. Once you got your run book in the sandbox, then have go, no-go decisions, do it in dev, then QA, then prod. So by the time you hit the production system, you've done it 3 times. But so far it's been a very smooth one, except that one issue we run into with the corrupted database, which we really would have liked to have something to restore back to. So that's a big lesson learned.
Okay, our next question is recommendation for migrating Deskey reports from 3.1 to 4.1.
Now, I'm not aware of a direct upgrade path from this client service. The Deskey is a client service tool, not a web-based tool. So I'm unaware of a direct, except for your sources and your connections and on the universe side, but I'm unaware of a way that where you can actually migrate the actual reports over to from the Deskey client server versions automatically into the web versions.
There is a compatibility pack that comes with 4.1 that allows Deskey content to be put onto 4.1 and to be managed by the platform.
So that's more of the content, but not necessarily so much on the layouts and on the controls. So you expect a little bit of manual changes, the manual work there, but there's the compatibility pack that should help you. So let's take a look at some of the new stuff also. Let's take a look at some of the new stuff and in this PowerPoint deck. So let's go through the next slide. So we have the jam, and we also have in the analysis, this is also very much new, this improved integrations back to the BW 7.0, 7.3, 7.4 releases in this case. So who wants to talk about the analysis part, the new features? Michael?
One of the new features is Waterfall Charts, which are also known as bridge charts. But the first point that we want to make is that SAP BW integration has been improved significantly. There have been several enhancements made to the prompt functionality and analysis, including the dialogue, which allows users to experience easier processing for large numbers of prompts, prompt merging, and manual entry of prompt values. Here we have the waterfall charts. And these can be created based on both hierarchical and non-hierarchical data, and they help highlight fluctuations relative to a single row of data. Sharing of work, the capabilities have been augmented. They offer the ability to export to Design Studio, which enables rendering on mobile devices. And so content can seamlessly be shared throughout an organization, which gives business analysts the ability to disseminate data through many applications.
And this is a really cool feature because you're in the middle of running on something, you're building the analysis, you're doing the OLAP interface, and you're playing around with the data and says, oh my God, I really want to share it with somebody else. Unfortunately, they're out there with an iPad or a Samsung or something like that, and you just want to be able to take that immediately and then export it into the Design Studio and then rendering over to a device afterwards. So let's say you build the mother of all OLAP functionalities out there and you have some sales data and some analysis and some calculated figures that you're interested in sharing. Before, it would be fairly clunky to do so. except for the web version, of course, the OLAP version. But now you can just throw it straight out in Design Studio, put the other features and the wrappers around it, and then get it straight out to the mobile device. So it's a very smooth transition, and that's brand new.
So right now we're going to go to a couple of points with dealing with 4.1 and dashboards. Some mobile enhancements include new charts. Now this includes the waterfall chart and the bubble plot. There are also some data labels for the chart components versus when it was not visible in 4.0. Now with 4.1, mobile is now compatible with Android devices. And from now on, instead of using a magnifying glass or scrunching really hard to look at your screen on your laptop, they have dynamic positioning now. So that way you don't have to resize your components or get it to the left or the right for formatting. As well as with that, there's also accessibility for keyboard support. And for the keyboard support, this is for the combo box, scorecard, text input, and as well as the other button components. And now as we move on to our second point, component and object browser enhancements. The component browser now has an option to display all or only mobile components. This helps expedite mobile dashboard creation as well as reduce the number of errors in a mobile compatibility panel. This option is selectable as a drop-down at the top of the components panel. As we move on to our next point, the objects in the object browser includes a search function. Now this is especially helpful for complex dashboards that may have hidden or nested items. The search field can be searched by component type or by name that you give by each component in the item. As well as with 4.1, there are new data connections. The two that comes to that are new are query as a web service, and then as well as Flash variables.
Next, we're going to discuss a little bit of what's new with Web Intelligence 4.1. As we saw earlier, the CMC has the auto sizing scaler, the configuration wizard, which we covered a little bit earlier. And as we spoke on one of the questions earlier about ease of use for report development tools such as Web Intelligence, you can also see here we have a small screenshot of customizing the interface that's going to be seen by the report developers for the Web Intelligence application. And this is done through CMC by the admin role. So you can go and custom assign each specific group within your security model different views of the interface for Web Intelligence.
And this is really important because we have had experience with clients, very large companies, who rolled out Webi, and they have these canned Webi reports that everybody's running. That's not an issue. But then you have these people who should be able to use some very basics. They want a simple interface, few buttons. They don't need to know how to merge dimensions and all the technical stuff. They just want to be able to slap together a very simple report and run on it. And some of them have gotten fairly overwhelmed with all the complexity, everything that's available, and clicked themselves into oblivions. So the idea now that being ability to suppress and turn off based on users and how you want to display that interface to different people, especially in BI self-service, that is a major step forward. It's really cool to see that SAP has put this in here.
Another new option we have in Web Intelligence is the ability to freeze headers and initial columns. This feature is somewhat similar to some of the Excel functionality you've seen before, where you can scroll down a table and maintain your persistent column headers or row headers as well. So this works on your cross tables, vertical tables, and horizontal tables as well, and is easily enabled via the main toolbar at the top of the GUI. We answered the questions a little earlier about the customizable color palette. You can build custom color palettes now instead of relying on what the default Webi options were. So you can create your custom branded color scheme for your specific company and apply that to every Web Intelligence report that you build. And you also have the ability to, as we spoke on earlier, color assignments for each specific object. So if you have a specific dimension or a series in a bar chart that needs to be congruent across multiple bar charts in the report, you don't have to go reformat every single report now. You can standardize your color schemes from the get-go with these customizable palettes.
And then again, that's also something if you have an authoring role. So if you think about full deployment of BI 4.1, where you have the end user consuming stuff and having things in their private stuff, and then you have the power users who are building their stuff and kind of sharing with others. But then you have the authoring role where you can come in there and publish back into public folders. You don't want to open up the public folders within the company and realize that everything looks and smells differently. The corporate branding is way off. Can you imagine Coca-Cola using blue colors from Pepsi? That wouldn't look very good. So this is really good, especially from the authoring who are building stuff and then sharing it back to a ton of users internally. And also, of course, for IT standard template as well. So this is the really cool features. So let's go back to our questions and see what other questions pop up in the meantime.
Okay, we have a question here. Any differences between using Bex 7 queries versus universes for SAP BW data and BO reports and dashboard? Anything to look out for in either solution?
Yeah, the key message here is go through the Bex. If you're assuming you have a BW7 system, 7.3.7.4, go through the Bex queries and use those Bex queries and then publish them with the Bix connectors into the front end. That is the vanilla flavor answer. There are some certain use cases in there you might go off the reservation, but that should be your default answer on everything. And your Bex queries runs pretty much the same way, same speed they run in the BW environment. In query stripping, of course, has been around there for quite a while now, and I think it was 3.2. And in that one, you actually have query stripping, so you can build larger BW queries and then basically automatically peel off the fields that are not used in the Webi report. But avoiding the MDX interface, the OLAP universes, from a performance reason, we strongly recommend that to our customers. But that has been the case since 4.0 as well.
Okay, our next question is, what are the key changes with 4.1 for Webi?
I think we just covered a good bit of that in the last little bit of the PowerPoint presentation that we just went over. Some of the more standout features would be the ability to freeze the column headers. That's a very useful thing as well. I think, as Dr. Berg put it, the standardization of the color templates, so branding is congruent across your BI self-service platform. There's also been some other upgrades as far as the RESTful SDK web services that are available to Webi as well, which can be very helpful for developers looking to take advantage of the RESTful services.
Okay, our next question is, while leveraging Bw via Bix Connection, is there still the overhead of launching Webi Java client? It literally slows things down for our users. Any ideas?
Leveraging the Bw Bix Connection, the Webi Java client slows down mainly because of Java. And most of the time that we found we've had issues with performance, and the Webi Java client is usually Java related. I know it's very version dependent on what version of Java you have. As specifically for Bix Connection, I don't know of any specific enhancements with 4.1 concerning the Bix Connection and loading anything into the Webi Java client.
Okay. So do we have any other questions? Let's go up and take a look at some of the other questions that has come in.
All right, we have a question. Hi, Berg. Currently, when a new data is pushed to BW, refreshing Bj reports does not reflect the new within the new rollout. For example, we are submitting some forecast values for real-time BW. Unless we close and reopen the Webi, we are unable to view the new views that we have submitted via BPC.
Yeah, that's very important to understand that a Webi is what we call in the industry parlor a managed query environment, like in Oracle Discover or the old Impromptu or so. So what happens is you're selecting the things on the front end, it generates a sub-SQL statement, it fires off against the database and make a trip to the BW system database, to the BW app server, and then into the Bj server. Now, there's no way for the Bj servers to know that the data has changed and needs to know another trip, and you really don't want to have that auto load, like you're in the middle of analyzing something, and because the data warehouse loaded the data, all of a sudden everything changes in front of you. So it has to make a trip back to the database to get the new data, to refresh it. So of course, that's really it's not really a bug or anything else. It's just the way a managed query environment work. When you're refreshing, it's not an interactive dialogue back and forth constantly via the app server. It is basically a managed query environment, an MQE system. So that's just simply how this type of tool works. And the same is true for all the other tools as well. So yes, you do have to do a refresh back to the database.
Okay, our next question is, we have BO 3.0 and building BO 4.1. Is there a way we can install BO 3.0 and BO 4.0 business object client tools in the same machine? Currently, we have installed both versions in the same laptop. It is not working for me.
We've run into this issue as well, more specifically with the 4.0 and 4.1 client tools. And while it may be physically possible to install both of these on the same laptop, they are competing for the same role, basically, as your client tools. And we have not had any luck installing an older version of client tools with a new version of client tools. And if you try to use the newer client tool version, as we've experienced on older environments, say you try to use the 4.1 client tools to the 3.1 system or vice versa, you run the risk of corrupting things such as IDT, for example. Trying to use an IDT in 4.1 and publishing that to 4.0 can potentially cause some issues just because of the client tool version difference. The universes that are output behave, I'd say, unpredictably.
Yeah, I think the only time we actually seen this working in reality is the dual boot computers, where you basically set up your system and you have almost like two separate boot routines. So you boot it up under one, maybe even then you can even have a different operating system if you want Linux versus Microsoft. But no, you have to have a dual boot system in order to do that. We haven't been very successful in running two sets of client tools. Let's take the next one.
We had Webis in 3.1, and when we were migrated to 4.0, the performance got down, and when approached SAP, they came up with, there was a complex calculation on the dashboard, and 4.0 calculation engine is still slow when compared to 3.1. How about 4.1 inversion?
In the calculation engine for 4.1, they've actually worked to optimize the process, so it actually they're projecting it's going to retrieve data on the queries anywhere from 20 to 50% faster than the 4.0 version. As far as the actual performance of that goes, we haven't benchmarked those increases, but it is a big focus area for them in the transition from 4.0 to 4.1. So it's supposed to be better, but we haven't actually had a chance to benchmark it yet.
Yeah, we've seen kind of anecdotally, we've seen things run faster, so that's kind of the good one. But sitting down with clocking and clocking them one by one, maybe that's something we should do. We should go ahead and run it in a 4.0 environment. We have many environments here, 4.0 and 4.1, and I think that's a very good, very good questions. But anecdotally, yes, we are seeing performance increases, and SAP is also advertising these 20 to 50% faster. Okay. Let's take the next one.
We have a BO 3.0.
That's the same question we answered before.
Yep.
There is overhead running on Webi Live with Bix since the Java client has to load for the first time. Any ideas on how to speed up the initial access? We are leveraging our Bw security, which is a big plus.
So I guess the question is there any way to fire off that the Java component before, so it's kind of preloaded inside of it for the first one? So I don't think there's any way except you could maybe come up with a script that fires it off your desktop during the load phase, but there's nothing inherently that would do that for you. You guys aware of anything else that would help him out? I guess the question he's asking is, if I use the Bix connectors and I have to load the Java, is there any way to preload the Java almost so that the overhead when I fire it off is kind of sitting there already? It's already done.
Yeah, that's kind of what we covered a little bit. Similar question earlier is the Java client is heavily dependent on the Java version, and as long as your client and server-side Java versions are on the same exact versions, that's the best performance and reliability we've found through Java. So as far as preloading anything with Java to speed initial load, I don't know that there's any way we can preload or pre-cache any of the Java application components.
And there is SAP has done a very good job putting together the PAM, the product availability matrix, where they will show you what version you're supposed to be for everyone even at the down to databases. And we got a couple of questions in here about Internet Explorer and so forth. And if you open up the product availability matrix, the PAM on the SAP Marketplace, they go into very, very detailed, even versions and subversions that should help you address those.
Okay, our next question is, what are the mobility options with Bw Tools in 4.1? Anything new here?
Well, both analysis tools, Excel and OLAP, provide direct export to Design Studio, which is meant to be mobile. And there's also new components and new connections within dashboards that allows you to export to mobile.
So I guess when it comes from the dashboard side, not much. You have the 37 objects is available in 4.0, so the dashboard has the HTML5 components, but like Lucacio was mentioning here, there are other changes as well in the mobile piece.
And as well, just to add in with that, it's also now compatible with Android devices. So again, that opens up the market for the other crowd out there.
That makes sense. So, okay, let's take a look at another one.
Okay, we have the question, upgrading from 4.0 to 4.1 question. Is it a service pack install or is it a whole new config and deployment?
It can be done either way currently. There is a upgrade path from 4.0 directly to 4.1 via an update, so you don't have to wipe everything and start all over again. You can also choose in, say, a sandbox environment, you're starting from scratch. You can start from bare bones, nothing installed installation, and go from there. So it is possible to do it either way.
Okay. We had another question, is 4.1 SP2 still projected for the end of November for release? Is there a known adaptation to be resolved list created already?
I haven't really seen the actual list. I saw a couple of guys writing blogs over on SCN. Well, not really SCN blogs. They were basically answering questions around this, but it seemed very much speculative what's in there. And so far, I think the SP2 date has not moved, and it's still at the end of November. That is correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. Hasn't seen any official dates to move, so I think we should still assume that's still on for end of November. So let's take a look at the next one.
Okay. The next question, what are the pitfalls to be avoided during installation of 4.1? Is it recommended to install on top of 4.0 install? What about client tools install?
As we noted earlier, that we had a little bit of a issue when we installed an upgrade from 4.0 to 4.1, which resulted in us losing our CMS database, and that could be from a number of reasons, but it could be potentially one of the pitfalls, as we are using a mixed environment right now with 4.0 and 4.1 servers. So as far as pitfalls go, that would be one to look out for, is verify that you absolutely back up everything that's critical, and definitely start doing this in the sandbox environment first, so you're not going to wipe anything out. So far with the clean installation, we've had no issues with that. It's been very straightforward with the clean installation, no issues so far. As far as client tools go, as we talked earlier in the last question, or one of the earlier questions, we have uninstalled previous versions of the client tools and gone with a dedicated 4.1 client toolset on our 4.1 machines. And by doing that, we've avoided having any of the inconsistencies we experienced earlier when we were mix and mashing our versions with client tools.
So I think we have time for one more question. Let's take a look.
Okay, I had a question from Scott. I joined late. Sorry if you've covered this already. Our organization is talking about making Java 1.7 and IE9 a standard. Are these supported in 4.1?
Yes, Java 1.7 and Internet Explorer 9 are supported in 4.1, as they were as well in 4.0.
And again, a lot of these questions that are, I know there's a lot of compatibilities questions that people want to upgrade. They are covered in the PAM as well, but it's a very good question since a lot of people are moving in that direction.
We have time for one more.
I think we'll do one more and then we'll.
Okay. So I had a comment from Grant. Do you have to upgrade your back end to 4.1 to see the new chart types in the mobile BI app, like combo charts?
We've run 4.1 dashboards in particular, and we've run that 4.1 dashboards off of an older 4.0 backend. And the functionality that was introduced in 4.1 dashboards is still active. It's still included in the features, even though we're using a 4.0 backend. As far as the other mobile BI apps, that would, as long as everyone on the mobile front end and the tool that is being used is in the same 4.1 version and compatible, there shouldn't be any issue with a 4.0 backend as for standalone tools like dashboards, like we spoke about earlier, since that is probably the only tool you'll be able to update to 4.1 without upgrading all the rest of the applications to 4.1.
And I think a lot of the people have questions about timing here, because as you know, we've been on 4.0 release now for over 2 years, and the 4.1 release has basically, there's a lot of small fixes. There's a few more things. We talked about the CMC, the wizards that are there for configuration management, which is really cool. There's a lot more small, minor updates and nuisance fixes. Of course, the SAP Jam is a brand new tool, and overall, internally, I think we are recommending to our clients that 4.0 is something we really want to go live with, and something we actually want to tell our clients that if you have a go live date in January, February, March, you should absolutely go ahead and do it. If you have a go live date, let's say at the end of this month or early December, you probably want to hang back on the 4.0 tools because of the test and retest and the upgrade side. But I think personally, if you go around the room, our perception is right now, having run it for a couple of months, is this is really ready for prime time. The only unresolved issues I don't think SAP has resolved yet is that analysis does not run in the BW workspace. Sorry, the BI workspace on Bj, and there's a note out there that SAP is working on. So specifically, it's if you're running your analysis web and you're trying to build it into a BI workspace inside the BI 4.1 platform, that does not work. So if you build something like that in the 4.0 and bring it forward, it won't work. But beyond that, and that's more of a nuisance thing, and not a lot of people are using that functionality, but beyond that, I don't think we've seen any showstoppers here. This has been very stable and extremely well executed. It's actually one of the easiest upgrades and most straightforward upgrades we've had, and it's not a revolutionary, dramatically change to the 4.0, but it is an incremental of fixing a lot of the small irritation stuff that we had. Some people mentioned the calculation engine running a bit slow, which is much faster in the 4.1. So I don't think there's any reason for people to hold back. Let's go around the room. What is your guys' opinion?
I would agree with that. I mean, like you said, from 4.0 to 4.1 is an easy upgrade. There's not any report migration or conversion required from like there was from 3.1 to 4.0. So it's pretty painless as far as picking up where you left off on 4.0 and continuing on without any significant interruptions.
Also, the good news is it looks like the changes they did make are more in the enhancements and fixes category. So it's not like you're having to learn the entire tool over again, and the things that they did change make a lot of sense. So,
yeah, my biggest enjoyment out of this is the mobile enhancements with the dashboards and exporting directly from Excel and from Analysis for All app into Design Studio is just beautiful. So it works really well.
And that's also a code-free environment, so you don't have to be a code monkey in order to make it work. And that's very relieving as well. What is your take, Nick?
I'm going to have to share the same view as Brandon Castry. With this upgrade to 4.1, it makes mobility with dashboards much easier, and it gives you more functionality, and it just gives you more customization to mess around with your dashboards and try and get to meet your company standards.
And since we didn't do the introduction, I should mention that the people sitting around me here are Bj developers, professional, and they're also most of them are certified SAP instructors delivering SAP training classes. So this is what they do for a living. What's your take, Michael?
I've had a chance to test tools in both 4.0 and 4.1, and I can tell you that the transition has been pretty seamless, and it's not hard to pick up at all. And I know that there's been an emphasis on customer feedback and acting on upgrades and enhancements based on that. So.
And I'd have to concur with Wakachi and Nick there. The mobility enhancements with 4.1 are pretty amazing there, and I love the direction that's headed.
So I think one of the takeaways we wanted to instill to you guys is if mobile is in your landscape, and I think long term it is for every company. In the future, we will stop making this artificial distinction between mobile and non-mobile. But if you are going to have a mobile initiative and you are going to go live with something, even towards at the end of December, but definitely if you're in the January, February, March timeframe, you have to put this on the radar screen. This is kind of, I would hesitate to go live with. Unless you have some very simple basic stuff, I would hesitate to go live on the 4.0 on the mobile platform when you know 4.1 is out there. And as we keep telling you today, it's a very stable platform with not a lot of issues there. And as you know, we are still available for emails and follow-ups to this afterwards. And I think we addressed, I'm not sure exactly how many questions, but dozens and dozens of questions. I hope this was very useful. We are going to be at the Reporting Analytics Conference. We're doing a full 3-day workshops on analysis, Webi, and dashboards at the BI Reporting Analytics Conference down in Florida. And those are 100% hands-on workshops. You can come in and spend a day with us, 1 day on analysis, 1 day on the Webi, and 1 day on dashboards, and get up to speed and meet these people in person. And also at Reporting Analytics, SAP will have a lot of their top guys will come down and also show and do more in-depth, step-by-step setups. So I appreciate your time, guys, and we'll stay up.